You're this perp back with another video, and I just got done watching Pantheon episode 3, season 1. Man, we got a lot to talk about, so let's get right into it. Starting off with the scene we get with Chantal. I think that's how you pronounce his name. I'm probably butchering his name. He's the guy that got pretty much abducted and got a piece of his brain kind of taken out. But we get a lot more information about this guy and what he's kind of doing. Not exactly what he's doing, but we kind of get a gist of where his kind of placement is in this story. And it's going to be interesting because it seems like he has kind of his own UI system going. And it's not really perfected, and it definitely kind of shows because there's something kind of supernatural trying to reach out to this guy, because he's living a very repetitive life. You know what I'm saying? He's pretty much like a slave at this point. But then going over to, Maddie and her father David, they're kind of reconnecting in this Reigns of Winter kind of server game, whatever. It's kind of like their own way of staying hidden from, people from Logarithm trying to find them. And he does some OP shit in here where he just completely overrides the whole entire system. And Maddie kind of gets upset, like, yo, you can't do this. We're supposed to stay low key. And I'm curious to see how this whole Reigns of Winter is going to play into the overall story. I like how it's being used in this episode. I'm curious to see if they're going to do more with it, or it's going to just kind of be used for Maddie to just communicate with her father, and that's probably just it. I hope not. I hope we kind of get more time in this world, this digital world of Reign of Winter. I think it's really dope. Then going over to Caspian, because Caspian, I think, has definitely grown on me, and I think on a lot of people based on this episode. I think he's definitely had some interesting character development, as things between him and Hannah aren't really going well. You know what I'm saying? Things kind of ended abruptly. Not ended, but temporarily ended abruptly. Meanwhile, Caspian kind of lets his mother know, like, yo, he's been looking into this whole upload UI situation, like uploading your consciousness into a computer, not knowing that his mother, Renee, is undercover. And I love that we get a lot more backstory on Renee and Carrie in this episode as well. Before we get into that, going back to old boy and what's going on with him, he starts to kind of remember things, or something's trying to make him remember. It's just like really weird, ghostly, creepy creature looking things that every time that he starts to kind of do his thing, they start to pop back up, which we'll get into that. It's kind of a thing that kind of pops in and out throughout this episode. It can kind of be an annoyance to some people, but I like how it's kind of layered throughout the episode. Shooting back to Renee and Carrie, though, they're at this like appliance store looking for hammers, so you do not know what they're up to. At this point, I'm thinking, like, are they gonna kill off Campion? Is that what they have to do? Because he knows way too much, and you could see the concern on both of their faces that this became more than a job to them. They actually looked at Campion as a son, and it really shows. And you also see that Renee actually had a connection to Steve back in the day before they started to work together. So that's interesting little information that we didn't know prior. But now going to Maddie and Justine, they're becoming a lot closer as friends. You know what I'm saying? They're less because they're both outcasts, and I like that they're slowly starting to work out this friendship. And Maddie starts to tell Justine about this idea she has to kind of get her parents to stop fighting, and she mentions Parent Trap. I wish they would have mentioned house arrest instead of Parent Trap. I think that would have been a cool little Easter egg, but either way, it works. So I just like that we're seeing these two characters kind of develop. Maybe we'll see her in the Reigns of Winter. I think we'll automatically start to see all these characters being uploaded into like the server on some reboot shit, which would be so fucking fire. And I want to see them kind of go on an adventure in that digital world. So what ends up happening next is Ellen starts to get a phone call from David, and she's kind of in disbelief, and he is kind of concerned that, like, damn, my wife doesn't even want nothing to do with me. She doesn't even want to talk to me. And he's constantly reaching out. And it's definitely taking an effect on Ellen because she still has a thing for Gabe. But quickly going back to, old boy that got kidnapped in the first episode, you know what I'm saying? He starts to kind of get memories brought back to him and seeing what happened to him and whatnot. And we don't necessarily know exactly what these things are or why they want to use him all of a sudden, or like why they reached out to him. Maybe because he's very smart and he's very similar to David, and I think it was her name Lori or Laura that was like the one that kind of created the whole server for David and whatnot and was doing the whole DDoS attack. So I don't think we've seen her yet, so it's going to be interesting to see how this all kind of comes together. So things are very much picking up with Logarithm as Caspian kind of starts to dig a little bit deeper. He actually finds their location, and this becomes kind of problematic. Julius seems like he's kind of nonchalant about it. Others think that this is going to be an issue. He's going to keep diving until he figures out what's really going on. And I think he's going to end up figuring out that his mom, Renee, and his father were kind of a part of this whole entire kind of operation, I guess you would call it. Meanwhile, you have Maddie getting dinner set up, and she's really cooking. Like, that's another little interesting detail we get from Maddie, that she's able to really cook her ass off, and she gets this whole thing prepared, and it doesn't really go the way that she plans because Ellen is really not ready to kind of open up just yet. But as she starts to kind of think about this more, it starts to kind of affect her relationship with Gabe, and she starts to kind of be distant from Gabe because he can't really, she doesn't think he will be understanding of what's going on. So she finally goes into the virtual reality to confront David, and I really like this moment. It was really dope. It really felt like an anime in this moment where they're kind of just coming to terms and trying to meet in the middle, and it ends up kind of working out for them. But on the other side, it's not really what Maddie wants. That she wants them to be together, and they're kind of okay with being separate and just doing their own thing in their own lives. Now we get back to Renee and Carrie, and we finally figure out what they're trying to do, and they pretty much have to. They've been pretty much living this lie. They've been living this kind of fake abusive life. Well, they have to really inflict pain on each other to kind of sell this, and this definitely makes Caspian kind of turn up, because they use the hammer to like kind of mess up Renee's arm. But Carrie kind of hesitates because he was supposed to be the one to do it, but he couldn't bring himself to do it, so she had to do it. And it definitely, you could just definitely tell that they didn't want to do this at all. And it's going to be interesting to see how this all kind of comes together. Like, if Caspian kind of figures out what's really going on with his parents, I'm wondering what's going to be the aftermath of that. But on the other side of things, with Ellen, David, and Maddie, things are starting to look really up as they're able to really reconnect, and this is really a really touching moment, a bonding moment amongst the family and whatnot. Now going back over to Carrie real quick, because he's definitely regretting his decision. He's just gonna miss Caspian, and we also kind of get a little bit more detail on who this guy is that kidnapped old boy in the first episode. That he's pretty much just like a rival tech company looking to kind of just do his own thing and compete with Julius. And that's really cool that we have kind of like two antagonists going on. So I'm curious to see where that goes. So Caspian's able to catch up with Hannah, and he starts to kind of open up a little bit more to her and stuff like that, and pretty much apologizes for the way he's been acting. I don't know how this whole situation with his parents is going to affect him and his mental, or it might just kind of open him up more, or this might be kind of dangerous for Hannah. You know what I'm saying? We'll have to wait and see. So the episode ends off with Chantal. I'm going to butcher his name until I get it stuck in my brain. He pretty much goes off. He kind of separates himself, I guess, from his human body. He's kind of like astroplaning in a sense, and he goes off into this little portal. It almost kind of reminds me of some Rick and Morty shit. But yeah, it's gonna be interesting to see where this story goes and what's going to be the cost of all of this, like as far as Caspian knowing everything that he knows, Maddie knowing what she knows about her father. But I definitely see things getting worse for our group of characters before it gets better. I like this episode a lot. It gave us a lot more backstory on certain characters that we didn't know up until this point. Let me know how you guys feel about this episode. How do you feel about the series so far? Are you enjoying it? Or are you thinking like you need to see a little bit more? Till next time, I'll see y'all in the next one. Peace.